Have you ever come across these motivational YouTube videos or TikToks? Yeah? Ones with the super intense music in the background. There's footage of people working out or running or vigorously typing. And then there's someone shouting inspirational things at you. Things like, never be satisfied. Don't get comfortable. Want more. It's okay if you haven't seen these videos. They exist, and I used to love them. I'd get to the end of a Dwayne Johnson or Al Pacino speech and just be ready to go. I mean, give me something to do, or lift, or run into. But what I always found confusing and slightly hilarious about these videos is that they talk about the need to set goals, push yourself, and achieve those goals, but then they also talk about the need to want more and to push yourself. And that makes sense to me. That's the reason why we set more goals and achieve them. But when in this goal cycle do we get to be satisfied? When do we get to be happy? In 2017, after I was diagnosed with depression, I was given all the typical treatments. I started taking antidepressants. I saw a therapist. I meditated. But having grown up in this goal-setting and achieving environment, I treated my mental health struggles as a challenge meant to be conquered. And what I wanted, what I craved, was to find some sort of mental boot camp that rewarded hard work and perseverance so I could push myself out of my depression. It was 2019 when I finally found what I was looking for. I was on my gap year between high school and college when the trip leader, after hearing about my depression, approached me one day to ask if I'd ever heard of Vipassana. He went on to explain that this is a retreat where you rid yourself of all of your possessions and you meditate for 100 hours over 10 days in absolute silence. He then said something to the effect of, people that do Vipassana say it is the hardest but most life-changing experience they've ever had. And as soon as he said that, I could feel the goal-seeking part of my brain completely light up. Finally, an opportunity to solve my depression through nothing but hard work and grit. So this idea of Vipassana for me quickly became this ultimate tried and true way of curing my depression. And that night I made a commitment to enroll in one someday. Now COVID had other plans, but 2 years later, this is June of 2022, I was finally able to make it happen. I was working in the Middle East that summer and managed to grab one of the last spots in a Vipassana center 45 minutes outside of Dubai in the middle of the desert. When I arrived, I gave them everything I had on me, my phone, computer, anything to read, write, or listen to, and headed into the courtyard. This is what it looked like. I was shown to 3 buildings and told, this is the one you eat in, this is the one you sleep in, and this is the one you meditate in. That night, we ate around a big table and chatted before taking our oath of silence for the next 10 days. This is what the schedule looks like. A little bell wakes you up at 4 a.m. You head straight to the meditation hall for 2 hours of meditating. Quick breakfast, then back to the meditation hall. Quick lunch, meditate, break, meditate, wash, rinse, repeat until 9 p.m. You get 2 vegan meals a day, followed by 18 hours of fasting, all the while in 115-degree Dubai heat. Now, the longest I'd ever meditated prior to this was maybe 45 minutes with lots of breaks, and it was probably the most excruciating 45 minutes of my life. So needless to say, this was an uphill climb. So over the next 10 days, the meditation itself was extremely difficult, but quickly became the easiest part of the retreat. What was slightly more difficult was the winning combination of heat stroke, food poisoning, eye infection, and insomnia that I unfortunately experienced. But throughout it all, I would just evoke those motivational YouTube videos in the back of my head. Push yourself. It's not supposed to be easy. It's all worth it in the end. And as people started to give up and leave the retreat, the only thing that kept me from doing the exact same was the knowledge of how great I would feel on day 10. So I got to day 10. We broke our oath of silence, and I finally realized it was over. And I look around me, and everybody around me is so happy. Some people are crying. People are calling their loved ones back home, talking about what an amazing experience it was. And I remember standing in the middle of it, thinking to myself, am I missing something? I am miserable. Why didn't I feel happy? Shouldn't I be satisfied? Shouldn't my depression be gone? So I go up to one of the people that work at the retreat, and I'm like, listen, I was told when I get to the 10th day, I'm supposed to feel changed and at peace, and I don't really feel like that's happening right now. And he says to me, oh, don't worry about it. This is just a leaping off point. Once you start doing our meditation for 2 hours a day, you'll start to feel it. Or you can just come back and do a longer course. I thought he was kidding. So, as I sat on my flight coming out of Dubai, I started running myself through the game plan that I had going into the Vipassana. Well, I knew I wanted to fix my mental health, and people told me that a Vipassana is a life-changing experience, so I figured if I were to complete one, I would feel great. So I set my goal. Then I pushed myself super hard through heat stroke, food poisoning, eye infection. I did it all, and I got to the 10th day. So don't I get to cash in now? Where are the fruits of my labor? But as I started to map all this out, I realized, as I'm sure a lot of you are right now, that there are red flags everywhere. First of all, fix mental health? What? That is an impossible goal. I don't know anybody with perfect mental health or who's happy all the time. Fix my mental health through finishing a Vipassana. Why is that the tried and true way of curing my depression? And then I realized that the person who told me about it, my gap year trip leader, had just mentioned it as a thing to consider. And it was my brain that had turned it into this last resort, turnkey solution. Push yourself. How do you push yourself to meditate? Isn't the whole point of meditating to be present and at peace? How am I supposed to do that when I'm so fixated on just getting through each session into day 10? And finally, I realized I had fallen into the all too common trap of expecting some sort of deep satisfaction or reward as a result of achieving my goals. And what I didn't realize at the time was that in order for this goal cycle to be a cycle, there needs to be a reason to set more goals in the first place. And our society and those motivational YouTube videos have shown us the way to do that, to never be satisfied. So what did I realize? I realized that the goal cycle, the thing that I had long viewed as the key to success in every aspect of my life, doesn't work for happiness. There's a concept known as the backwards law, coined by English writer Alan Watts, who says, the more we pursue feeling better all the time, the less satisfied we become, as pursuing something reinforces the fact that we lack it in the first place. So where do we go from here? How do we feel better without pursuing it? It's time to throw out the entire playbook and stop using the goal cycle to try to make us happy. And I want to share with you the 2 steps I've taken over the past 2 years to not only greatly improve my mental health, but deepen my general satisfaction in life. Now, step 1, embrace yourself, because this will be the most controversial sounding thing that I say today, but stop focusing on goals. But don't take my word for it. Deepak Chopra, one of Time magazine's 100 most influential people, calls this the law of detachment. He says in order to acquire anything in the physical universe, you have to relinquish your attachment to it. Now, you don't give up the intention, and you don't give up the desire. You give up your attachment to the result. Emphasis on that last part, attachment to the result. Now, this sounds painful, but this is all we're doing. We're getting rid of the expectation of how we want to feel after we achieve our goals, and we're shifting that satisfaction or fulfillment to the process of achieving our goals. Now, if I achieve the goal, it's not because I was expecting anything from it. I wasn't attached to the result. Rather, I enjoyed the process of getting there. Think of any musician who's ever won a Grammy. Most musicians want to win a Grammy. But you can only get to that stage when the enjoyment comes from making the music, not from getting the award. So, if step 1 is to stop focusing on goals, what do we focus on? Focus on the how. How do we want to spend each and every day? And I know we've heard this a million times in a million different ways. It's the journey, not the destination. It's all about the process. James Clear, writer of the book Atomic Habits, likes to refer to this as systems of habits and practices and routines. And he writes, when you focus on the process rather than the product, you don't have to wait to give yourself permission to be happy. You can be satisfied anytime your system is running. Goals are good for setting a direction, but systems are best for making progress. And I want us all to start thinking about how we too can create our own systems of satisfaction. And we can begin doing that by starting small. Start small, you guys. I cannot emphasize this enough. Because it took me meditating for 100 hours to understand the power of 1 minute of meditation. If we can all find little joys in life that only take us 1 minute to complete a day, not only is that action so much easier to maintain, but we never expect anything from it. So you could write one thing you're grateful for once a day, or go outside for a minute in the morning, or text a friend to have a great day. The point is, we don't expect to achieve enlightenment from doing any of these things. So it allows us to build the habit without yelling at ourselves and saying, why did that work? Why don't I feel happy? So start small and have something to celebrate each and every day. And finally, when you're building your own systems of satisfaction, stay true to you. As much as I hated learning this at the Vipassana, no, there is no silver bullet solution to making everybody happy, which makes it so important to figure out what works for you. Now, this next slide will be the grossest thing you've seen all day, and I'm so sorry. But this spreadsheet is how I used to keep track of my depression symptoms and daily habits. And it worked at some point. And what this taught me was to stay personal and creative with the ways that we take care of ourselves. And when I got sick of looking at this every day, I swapped it out for this little guy, a cute little notebook. We've also talked a lot about meditating today, but did you know that 6 to 14% of the population isn't biologically fit for meditating? That's why it's so important for us to figure out how you react to certain activities and to never take anybody's advice, including one on a TED Talk stage, as gospel. Be open to anything, but be attached to nothing. So, 2 years later, I can confidently say that I know now that my 100 hours of meditating were not in vain. And it's not because I achieved my goal. It's not because I fixed my mental health, whatever that means. It's kind of the opposite. It's that I realized I will never fix my mental health. I will never be eternally happy. But instead of that freaking me out, it's a relief. Because now I can take steps each and every day and continue to improve, explore, experiment, but never expect, and be satisfied the whole time. And as I say goodbye to my favorite motivational YouTube videos, I encourage all of you to start thinking how you too can break free of the goal cycle, focus on the process, start small, stay true to you, and master the art of satisfaction. Thank you.